And today we'll be going through athlete engagement within your athlete management systems. The theme of these human performance webinars has been best practices for athlete management, whether you're using the Smartabase platform or you're using something else. Today's example of athlete engagement, we will be using the Smartabase athlete management system. If you're a current client and you like what you see, please reach out to your current Smartabase consultant. We'll be happy to have some dialogue there and maybe add some of these neat little features into your own environment. And if you're not a Smartabase consultant, please feel free to reach out to me, james@fusionsport.com, for any further conversations. And that goes for current clients that maybe don't have a point of contact as well. Please feel free to reach out to me, james@fusionsport.com. If you're on the Zoom webinar and you're joining us live, thank you for joining us live. We have the chat functionality. It's either Q&A or chat, two functions inside of Zoom on the right-hand side or the bottom of your computer. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hello to you. Please comment below. What we want to see out of these is any questions that you might have for those on the Zoom. We'll answer them in real time. So punch them in. We'll either address them immediately, or what we'll do is we'll address them in the Q&A at the end of the session. I just wanted to introduce Braydon Mallitt here, our guest host today. Braydon's been with the company for a long time. He's one of our longest standing consultants and has worked inside of the Asia Pacific for a number of years, Olympic committees, pro sports, military, and has just come back from a stint overseas in Europe as well. So a lot of experience from Braydon today, and I'm really excited for him to get into athlete engagement and how do we drive compliance, answering the questions of how do we drive compliance of our self-reported athlete data collection forms. But if we don't have, the need to do data collection through the mobile, where's our single source of truth for our athletes? Where can they go find their data, their PBs, any communication, any match statistics? So I'm really excited to get into this today with Braydon. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Braydon.
Thanks, James. Looks like I'm logged in under James as well, but doesn't look like I'm able to get my video going, unfortunately. But so we'll just have to go with voice. So thanks for the introduction. So yeah, as James said, I've worked with professional teams as well as institutes of sport and Olympic committees across the Asia Pacific and the European region. And from those experiences, I've seen quite a bit, quite a few different workflows. And one of the things that I've seen that a lot of organizations don't do as well as they could is the giving the information back to their athletes. So a lot of the times these organizations will be, oh, there we go, got the video working. A lot of the times these organizations will be collecting the information off of their athletes, but not necessarily giving them back to them in a way that they can understand the information and drive some decisions off of that. So one of the key reasons for looking at a workflow like this is to drive the engagement and the compliance of the athletes. If they're able to see the results from the information that they're entering, they'll be more likely to actually enter that data in the first place. And they can start to see things actually progress in their dashboards as they enter it, which is a really cool thing. Cool. So James is driving the screen for us today. So I'll just get into go into the dashboards, and we'll jump into the Athlete Insights dashboard there. So while this one's loading up, this is really a dashboard that's focused on giving information directly back to the athlete. So as we first log in, we can see a few flags that are starting to pop up. So the first one we've got is the athlete status around whether they're injured or not. And then as we start to scroll down, we've got things like their mood, their fatigue, their stress, their soreness, etc. One of the things that I think is really cool about this particular dashboard is the feedback tiles that are in there as well. So what I see for a lot of organizations that do give some information back to the athletes, they will give them the flags and things like that. But it's really that feedback that allows the athletes to start to take some action based off of the flags. So it's not just that your stress is not improved, it's sitting stable, but the fact that, hey, maybe you could look to improve your sleep, and by improving your sleep, you might start to improve your mood or your stress or your fatigue or something like that. So yeah, really having those feedback pieces. Yep, sorry, James.
And Braydon, just for those at home, is this something that Fusion Sport puts into every application, or how is this feedback generated for the athletes?
So the example that we have here is just an example that the sports scientists at Fusion have put together, taking some basic research and popping it in based off the flags. If we're setting people up initially, and we're taking examples of like a daily diary that we've built before, we will include some of these feedback calculations. But these could also be built by your organisation as well. So if you've got specific feedback that you want that is based off, again, specific criteria, such as if a soreness is above a 5, or if you're, it could be based off nutrition, could be based off sleep, whatever you want it to be based off, we can come up with the rules for what triggers that feedback, and we can do it exactly from what you said. So it doesn't have to be the example that we've put up on the screen. So the next one that we're going to go to, we're going to scroll up to the top of this one, James, and we're going to select a tab, and we're going to go to the communications tab. So this one here it's a multi-purpose tab, this one. So this is looking at not only as a way of communicating to the athletes that something has happened and needs to be actioned, or at least viewed, but it also sort of acts as a document store at the same time, so a sort of electronic filing cabinet. So what we can see here, so James has just clicked on one of the rows in that table of the most recent communication pieces. So we saw that it was a COVID reminder, and upon clicking on it, we get the pop-up and can see that further detail, so that there's an attachment there, and it's got the latest government information. So we're going to click Go to Record. And once we're in there, we'll see that we have the details are listed, but also we have the attachment there. So we can click on that attachment, which will download it to be able to view on our phone. So we'll just wait a second. And here we can see that attachment there pops straight up on your phone. We can scroll through, read all the information in here. Now this is a COVID update, so it's got some statistics and some information. But this could be anything like a training plan, a team schedule, rehabilitation plan, anything that someone wants to attach for the athletes to read and get further information. The other cool thing that I've seen which is an addition to this particular workflow that I haven't seen as often, is the communication part of the workflow. So this is more of a one-way communication. It's not so much of a conversational piece for that back and forwards that you might have on a WhatsApp, for example, but it's more to say that, hey, this document's out there. You'll see we have the user acknowledgement question. So that's asking the athlete whether or not they need to be able to, they should provide acknowledgement to say, yes, I've seen it. And then we've got the comments in as well. So the athlete might decide to jump in and say, hey, coach, I've seen this, or I don't quite understand it. Yeah, please give me some more information. So, and that's basically a trigger. The coach can then receive a performance alert. So for those who are new to Smartabase, that could be an automated alert based on the results of this record. That could come through as a text, as an email, or part of an app notification. And then that can be the trigger to start to have that communication, whether that's in person or at times like these where we may be separated from our athletes. That could be where you start your WhatsApp conversation, or jump on the phone or something like that. Yeah, so that's a really cool little one-way sort of communication piece, as well as a document store. So next up, we'll jump into the physical screening. So again, relatively basic. We're not trying to do anything too crazy here. We have a couple of flags that we can start to see whether they've improved or declined. And then if you just click on the sit and reach details, we should see their most recent result. This could be most recent or a PB as well. And then just a really, really simple chart. So that's just looking at their last 2 months of results. Really simple. We're not overwhelming it with too much information, but we also have some ranges here, so the athlete can understand if it's a good result or not. So as James starts to click through some of those other charts that we have available, different types. We've got lines versus bars, but again, each of them has those ranges to see where the athlete sits. Have they done well? Are they doing excellent? Do they maybe need to improve on what they were doing before? So really quite simple, but those little triggers for the athlete to know what's going on. So we'll jump into the anthropometry tab. Again, not too crazy. A few tiles with some colors that jump out to the athlete so they know whether it's good or bad. Some data across time, and then yeah. So really quite simple. Yep, I think that's yeah. And then the last one is just some performance results, so we can start to see some of their testing, their VO2 maxes, their workloads, etc.
Just to add some further commentary to this, you know, Braydon's initial point about the communications tab was a nice way to obviously create that one-stop environment where you're pulling in the athletes and directing them to go to Smartabase. This is another way that you're really directing your athletes to come into the one place and the one source of truth. So you might not want to have this level of detail, but it's the capability and knowing that we're able to push data, push results to a central place to direct your athletes to. And you know, examples in here have been around communication and performance, but I've seen some massive success with game reviews, post-game reviews, some statistics if you're able to import or integrate with any stats providers to push in most recent game stats, just for the players to have a point of reference and one place to go to get their overall information.
So I think what we might do next is we might look to jump into the back end and just give a bit of a view about how we can quickly update these dashboards if you have something new that you want to add, and how easy it is to just make these adjustments on the fly and have them update essentially in real time. So what I might do is, James, if you drop your screen, I'll pop mine up and we'll jump into the builder.
Yep, I'm just doing this now. So the example that we're about to go through is one where maybe Braydon, someone has asked, hey coach, you know, I don't want to have these variables on my screen anymore. I want to have different variables, or you go about wanting to make an update or a change to the dashboard. In real time, this is how quickly someone like Braydon or someone within your own organization can go, okay, we need to make this change, and we need to make this change quickly. Let's go about doing it. So Braydon's just going to talk us through some elements of our dashboard builder, which allows us to make real changes in real time. And then what I'll do is I'll refresh my dashboard on my page, and you'll be able to see the changes that Braydon has made. So talk us through some of the changes you're making here, mate.
So what I'm doing at the moment is the chart that we had, the lean muscle mass chart in the anthropometry tab. It was good. We had the body mass bars as well as the lean muscle mass lines. So just as a little bit of background information, in the dashboard builder, which is what I'm in now, this is where I can make the edits to our dashboards. What we can currently see is just some example data. It's just preview. It's not any of the real data that we see of the athletes. It's just going to be an indication of how this chart might look. So this chart, it was missing some of that key information that I explained. So if I jump back into our other physical screening tab, we can see that we had that good, average, excellent, that information that really drives the athletes to understand what they're looking at. So I'm starting to add that into our lean muscle mass chart here. So what I was adding first is our custom grid lines, so we can see those lines going across. And next up, I'm just going to be adding some regions. What this does is it allows us to have that color that sits in the background, so that it starts to make a bit of sense. Sure, the lines are cool. If we can add in some color, it starts to make it a little bit more informative as well. I'm just going to be doing a couple of these. I'm setting the start and end ranges of these regions. So these are completely customizable, configurable to each chart that you want to be looking at. James, it looks like you're on mute, mate.
Sorry, guys. Just as Braydon's making those changes there, I'll just speak to some environments where they do have quite a culture of whether it be wellness check-ins or whether it be self-reported training load or training session diaries, what they've done. So where you have this culture within your organization where you're telling your athletes, hey, can you please jump on and fill out your wellness, or hey, can you please jump on and fill out your training diary? You know, this type of value add for your athletes, giving them back the information that they're putting into the system, has seen some tremendous engagement. What I'll look to do is share with you a presentation from the Australian Institute of Sport. That was one of their key drivers when they first started, was to look at how can we get our athletes really coming into our app, because they really valued the wellness piece and they really valued the training load piece. So they wanted their athletes to come in and, in their words, be addicted to their data. So they put a lot of effort into, okay, how can we give our athletes so much value that they can't help but come into this environment? I can just see Braydon's making a few changes here, moving things around. Again, you can just see some of the power of the dashboard builder and how quickly we can make these changes. Braydon, if you just want to go ahead, mate, hit save on that, we'll jump back to my screen and we'll refresh those changes. So just pulling my screen up again, I still have yet to refresh. So we can see I'm still on that dashboard that I was before. The anthropometry overview, the information here, that lean muscle mass chart that the widget that Braydon was modifying is still as it was. I go about hitting refresh, and what we'll see here is those changes made from Braydon in real time here. So again, just a nice little way. We've heard some feedback throughout our webinars that, you know, we reference these changes that we can do quite a bit, but we haven't actually showed you how we do it. So we just wanted to go through, use this webinar as a way to go through some athlete engagement examples, but also show you how quickly we can modify and put in your own information, your own data and your own tweaks in real time. So we can see these grid lines reflected here perfectly. Thank you, Braydon, and some of the movement he's done here with these top tiles. So with that, Braydon, did you have anything further that you wanted to add here?
I guess the main point is that the examples that we've shown here isn't necessarily that you have to give all of this information, these specific examples back to your athletes. The main point is that the more information you can give back and the more informative it is in terms of whether it's good, bad, worse, whether there's actions that they can get out of those specific flags to improve themselves or maintain where they're at. It's really about giving your athletes those sort of pieces of information that can help drive their engagement and therefore their compliance. And the more likely they are to enter their data, the better data you get. And then as a sports scientist, as a physio, as a doctor, as an S&C coach, you'll be able to start to get better results out of your data as well.
Okie dokie. So we will open it up to questions now. We have the Q&A function, we have the chat function. If you're a speaker like me, you don't like to type, there's a raise hand functionality as well. If you raise your hand, then we'll be able to bring you into the call and you'll be able to speak. So we'll just wait on those to come through, should they come through. And as we're waiting for those to come through, I'd invite you to give us any and all feedback. So the comment section below, if you're on YouTube, the Zoom obviously right now, but we're going to put out a survey following this call as well. And we would love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your comments, what you liked, what you didn't like, and any future topics for next week. So we really, really appreciate that to come through. Just a final thing, as we're waiting to see some questions come through, I will say next week, we will be at a different time next week. It's to be determined, but we're going to be going to a different time. We're very exciting webinar plan for next week, and with a bit of an international flavor to it. And the same goes for the following week. We'll be at a different time the following week as well. So we're just going to slightly change some of the timings to suit a more international audience starting next week. So please be on the lookout again for those emails, but please make sure that we're looking at the time, because we will change from our standard 2 o'clock time. I can see no questions have come through, no comments have come through. We want to thank you for your time here today, and we really appreciate you joining us. Braydon, do you have anything further you want to add, mate?
No, that's all from me.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you have any questions for your consultants, if you're a client, please reach out. If you don't have a consultant, it's James at Fusion Sport. If you have any questions, everybody enjoy your day. Thank you for tuning in.